7:15 here on this Monday morning. Great to have you with us on the 25th of March. Can you believe it? It's payday for some, and it also is payday for some students, in fact. Over 50,000 tertiary students, and the number, in fact, that I've got in front of me is 52,514 to be exact, are debt-free after the Minister of Higher Education and Training announced yesterday that their historical debt to the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, or NSFAS, has been settled. The department allocated nearly R1 billion to NSFAS to scrap these students' historical debt. Minister Naledi Pandor said that this is confirmation that the government is sensitive to the plight of students from the poor and working class families. So let's take this further. Joining us in studio, we've got the Deputy Minister of the Department of Higher Education and Training, Buti Manamela. Also in studio, we've got Thabo Shingange, the national spokesperson of the South African students, that's SAUS. And of course, we've got Luyanda Tenge, the Deputy President of the South African Student Congress, that's SASCO. Good to have all of you. Thanks so much for being with us here on Morning Live.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, so let's get into the investment, Deputy Minister, and the Ministry describing this as one of the biggest investments that it's made into tertiary education. Talk to us a little bit more about this.
Thank you very much for having us here. I think firstly the importance of this decision is the fact that in some of our campuses in the year where there have been protests, one of the central issues that was raised was historical debt. And so, when the minister met with the student leadership earlier in the year, she made a commitment that before the end of March, the department will make an announcement to this effect, and to indicate that this is not the first time that a payment of this magnitude is paid to universities in lieu of student debt. Such a payment was made in 2016, about 2 billion rand, which was advanced to universities to settle the debt that students has with institutions. So what this essentially means is that those students who owe universities and have signed an acknowledgement of debt and have registered with those universities now, and were NSFAS funded student, that debt is cleared. Secondly, those students who are studying in the academic year 2017-2018, 2018-2019, those students, if their results were withheld and they could not graduate, their debt has also been cleared and they can now graduate. We're hoping that these students, the 52,000 students, would have completed their academic program by the year 2022, and therefore the question of historical debt would have completely been dealt with as it relates to working class and poor students who qualify for the National Student Financial Aid Scheme.
The concern around, I'm going to bring the student organizations in, but I just want to get a little bit of clarification on one. It basically says continuing students.
Yes.
What does that mean? Does that mean that students that are continuing their studies, or what does it mean by continuing students?
Yeah, it exactly means that. It means students who are within the system, students who have registered for an academic program, and those students who are funded by the National Student Financial Aid Scheme who've accumulated debt, over time. One of the biggest challenges, we faced earlier in the year was that universities could not commit to register students who owed those universities unless if those students, signed an acknowledgement of debt. And what the department and the ministry has been doing in that period, working together with the student leadership, has been to get universities to agree to register the students so that we can then finalize. If you'd recall, Leanne, when the former president made the announcement around fee-free higher education, one of the things that he spoke to was the fact that the department, together with the presidency and treasury, will make an investigation as it relates to historical debt, because this is one of the most crucial point as it relates to access to higher education in our country.
Okay, all right. Let me quickly bring in the students here, because you guys, I'm sure, have got a lot to say about this. Thabo, what was your initial response to hearing this news?
I think Thank you very much. As a union, first and foremost, we welcome the decision because it follows many interactions we've had with the Minister and the Department of Higher Education. But I think, and also it speaks to the demands that resonate with many students across the country, which is the issue of historical debt. And so we believe that the figure in and of itself will go a long way into easing off the financial pressure for many students. Of course, taking into cognizance as Deputy Minister has mentioned, the historical developments. I mean, it was actually 4.52 billion quantified that was made by former President Jacob Zuma to clear off historical debts. I think it was from 2012 to 2015. And so this 967 million by Minister Naledi also fits into that particular narrative and conversation and begins to respond to some of the outstanding issues that will in future make the realization of free higher education possible for many students. So I think it goes a step forward towards bringing us to that realization. Of course, there are many other outstanding issues which students may be concerned about, the issue of the off-campus meal allowances, etc., which need to be responded to. And I think once the department begins to look into these matters more seriously and begin to allocate more funds or resources that may be available, will go a long way into realizing free higher education and dealing with the issues across our campuses.
Okay, Luyanda?
Yeah, thank you very much. Greetings to the viewers at home, the students in general. Look, we, as South African Student Congress, we welcome, of course, this initiative by the department. However, we believe that it is small to the challenges that we have in the sector. Remember, when we're saying the historical debt must be cleared by the department, by the government of South Africa, we were not only talking about people or students who are only in the system. We are also speaking about those students who are languishing at home, those students who have already graduated in these institutions of higher learning and they don't have their qualification with them. And that is a contributing factor to the unemployment of young people in our country. Because remember, when they are supposed to go and look for a job, they are required by these companies to submit their qualifications. They cannot. So the issue of historical debt is very broad. This particular 900 plus amount million, of course, is a step towards addressing that particular question. But we believe that there are a lot of students who actually graduates who are outside the system already. And our focus must not only, if we are to really address the issue of historical debt, must not only focus to those who are in the system, must also focus to those who are outside the system. Because the reality of the matter is that they are taken to debt collectors, and that is dealing with their credit record as people in our country, as citizens. So we're saying, the Department of Higher Education, well, we appreciate, let me say it again, we appreciate the effort, but we're saying there are a lot of students that are supposed to be actually assisted. And when we've had interactions with the Department of Higher Education, they said up to 9 billion of the money that can address the issue of historical debt in our country, totally to all people who are affected by such. So we're saying they must actually, the department must actually go, because we are not only appreciating and welcoming, we're also having suggestion to the Department of Higher Education that the minister and the deputy minister, they must go and speak with the treasurer, national treasury, and at least convince him to reprioritize.
Okay.
Yes, on the money that because there is money in our country. There is money available. So
is there? Because that's the question I'm getting from a lot of viewers. Where's this money coming from?
Yes.
You know, we as a country are struggling with debt, a lot of debt, and now we're finding almost R1 billion to fund this. Where's this money coming from? Let's ask that to the Deputy Minister.
I think firstly, what we need to acknowledge is that from the last financial year, government expenditure on higher education have significantly gone up. Government funding towards students' tuition fees has significantly grown out, and you know, included in that is government funding towards university grants, towards infrastructure. So the extent within which government has committed to fund higher education you know, shows the commitment that this country has towards, you know, access to education in our country. The second thing is that as it relates to the 980 million rands, this was these are funds that have been are within the line function of the department, which have been reprioritized. So it's not money that is new that comes from Treasury, and we reprioritized this money towards specifically funding historical debt because it has been a pressing issue. And I think that
it's been a pressing issue for a while, though, if I may. I mean, this is nothing new, and a lot of people questioning the timing. I mean, honestly, Deputy Minister, is this an election ploy from the ANC to attract young voters?
You see, Leanne, I think that if we are expecting government to stop to operate precisely because we've got election, I think it would be ridiculous. We've made the commitment much earlier in the year. In fact, the first meeting we've had with the student leadership was in January, where the minister said that firstly she's going to look at what possible intervention can be made by the department. And as I said, this is not the first time that government is making such a contribution. And I think it would be ridiculous for us to suggest that because we're going into elections, we should allow students to go on being uncertain about what their future would be only after elections. In fact, I think anybody who wants to suggest it would extremely be ridiculous.
Deputy Minister, what about exactly what Luyanda was bringing up here about the fact that how far back does this go? When you talk to historical debt, there are students, qualified students sitting at home that cannot get their degrees because they owe money and this is ruining their lives.
I think what the minister said in the statement yesterday was that this is the first phase, meaning that we're dealing with the current crisis as it is happening in our campuses, and that we will obviously look into, or we are actually looking into, the entire situation as it relates to historical debt to universities. And what is also important and of emphasis is the fact that we're going to be looking at students who are from working class and who are families who would have probably in one way or another been funded by the National Student Financial Aid Scheme. And maybe just as a point linked to that is that even though there are still students who are faced with challenges, we always emphasize the fact that no student should be taken to the creditors or anything of the sort. They should only be required to repay the money, particularly to the National Student Financial Aid Scheme, when they are working and when they are earning a particular amount. And we've seen a huge response from students who are working, who are saying that because they've been taken to university through the same financial aid scheme, they are committed to ensure that more and more students are then...
I know you want to comment very quickly. Go for it, and Thabo straight afterwards. Very quickly, though.
Yes, thank you very much. Look, we're saying in this 900 million that is already available, the department and NSFAS, they must at least look at the historical disadvantaged institution, because remember, those are institutions that almost 90% of students who are in those institutions are beneficiaries of NSFAS. They are institutions that are like Stellenbosch universities. Those institutions are institutions that at least they are having private donors. They are having a lot of bursaries. They are funded by private sector. So I'm saying we are suggesting to the department to look into that particular regard, at least to address the question in this historical disadvantaged institution, your Forte, your Walter Sisulu University, your Mango Sutu. So those are institutions that I believe majority of these poor working class students are at. So it's our suggestion as South African Student Congress. But the last point I think is very important and fundamental. Remember, out of almost 1 million of students in our country, 40% is coming from TVET. So I want to put this point to Deputy Minister of Higher Education that there must be an attention that is paid to TVET students, because those students are students who are actually studying courses that are towards developing our country. And there must be special attention that is given by our government. They must not be treated as if they are deputy students in the sector. They are students as well.
Okay.
They must be treated like students in universities. That is what we are saying.
All right.
We want department to take that serious.
Interesting. Okay, Thabo, just on you.
As a union, just to add on to that, is the issue of, while we want to focus on disadvantaged institutions as well, the issue of the missing middle, I think, across the sector needs to be looked into.
Big story.
Big story, because, for instance, even the provisions that have been made now speak to that student of NSFAS. So what happens to the student who historically had not qualified for NSFAS because we had deemed them to be a missing middle category? What happens to their particular historical debt, and who also find themselves outside of the system? So I think we'll be engaging, of course, with the department to look into that, as well as the other issues, again, like the issue of meal allowances for off-campus students. I think those are things that need to urgent attention and reprioritization of the DHET budget.
In 30 seconds,
In
just
30 seconds,
quickly.
I think we need a much longer debate that relates to TVET
absolutely.
colleges.
Yeah.
I think that's crucial, and I'm quite happy that SASCO has raised that point. We have indicated to the leadership of the South African Union of Students that we will be attending to the question of meal allowance, and I think finally, what we really want to see is all our institutions back on their academic program, and we believe that the decision that was announced by the minister yesterday is going a long way towards that, and that's our priority. All the other issues, as we said, this is the first phase. Into the next phase of the question of dealing with historical debt, we will take all of these issues into consideration.
Next phase this year? When?
Well,
I mean, we need a time frame because people are frustrated.
This year.
Of course, but it's an issue that's within the radar of the department. It's something that we're working on.
All right, let's leave it there. Buti Manamela, who's our Deputy Minister of Higher Education and Training, Thabo Shingange, spokesperson for the South African Union of Students, and Luyanda Tenge, Deputy President of the SA Students Congress. All of you, thank you very, very much. Again, this needs a much longer discussion, but I think this has given you just a little bit of a perspective as to the announcement yesterday. Let's get into our news just after 7 o'clock. Sakina, it's over to you.